Great, thanks, Wendy. Hey, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm going to try to make this as interactive as possible, so don't hesitate to throw in an answer or possibly even a question. Questions I might try to hold off on a little bit as we go throughout the presentation, because we'll likely answer many of the questions, but if something really jumps out, don't hesitate to throw out a question. But for this one in particular, here's an example where you can use the chat window and just simply throw out any thoughts or ideas when we ask a question saying, what is interesting about these firms? And as you take a look at some of the information presented here, what jumps out to you? And we might, depending on if we get a few chats or not, we might just have that be a rhetorical question, but we'll see if we get a couple of chats. At least I'll let you take a moment to take a look at this and just see what jumps out. What a lot of people will recognize is the employee count as one example. Let's take the top row as an example, Uber and BMW. Uber has about 12,000 employees, BMW has 160,000. And there's a good comment from Andrea, higher revenue for digital-based companies. So Uber has a market capitalization. This one's really interesting, actually. The market capitalization is swinging wildly as they prepare for an IPO. So 86 billion is currently what I've seen for Uber, but I've even seen higher speculation of $120 billion in market capitalization for Uber as they prepare for an IPO. Let's see, don't need physical buildings to make money. That's another good point. Uber, Airbnb, Facebook, Instagram, these are companies that don't have very many physical assets in order to do their business, whereas BMW, Marriott, Walt Disney, and previously Kodak have a lot of physical assets. So the market capitalization, what these companies are worth, there's some differences there. The speed also, how about the speed it took these companies to get to that value? Uber started in 2009 and currently has a valuation of 86 billion, and BMW started in 1916 and has a market cap of 57 billion. And you see that with the other examples as well. The time it takes to get to these numbers is phenomenal. Great speed with the growth that these companies are experiencing. Trying to move to the next slide here. 1 second. There we go. So the older firms utilize a pipeline business model, and the newer firms utilize a platform business model. So even though the main top title of this presentation is talking about the acceleration of growth using digital transformation, the common theme here that we're going to dive into today is looking at the differences, comparing and contrasting pipeline business models, the traditional business models versus the platform business model. So that's where we will be taking some deeper dives. This will be kind of a high-level presentation, giving you really a general sense of this area. We will take a couple of deep dives here and there, but for the most part, it's really just introducing this to those of you who would like to learn more. And as somebody mentioned, I think it was maybe Andrea mentioned in the chat, don't need physical buildings to make money. So here's a quote that we've all probably heard in the past. Uber, the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, most popular media owner, creates no content. Alibaba, most valuable retailer, has no inventory. And Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. And something interesting is happening. And when Tom Goodwin made this comment a few years back, I'm not sure if that question, something interesting is happening, if he, I suspect he knew what was happening, but that something interesting is this shift to a platform business model. That's at least one major aspect to this, and that's what we're talking about today. So to better understand this, let's take a look at a traditional pipeline model. With a traditional pipeline model, you've got suppliers providing, in many cases, at least for manufacturing, providing raw materials. And then you've got a process that, let's use the manufacturing example again, where you take those raw materials and throughout your process, the producer, the manufacturer, takes the pieces and adds value each step of the way. So each step within the manufacturing process is adding more and more value to that product. And out at the end, then you've got the consumer who will be taking that product. And the item of value moves through the pipeline. So that's the traditional pipeline model at a high level. But if we take a look at the platform model at a high level, and we'll dive into more details here, of course, but at a very high level, just to level set with everyone, when you have the platform business model, you're really taking the producer and the consumer off platform and creating an external ecosystem. That's the key differentiator between a platform business model and a pipeline business model. And so we'll look at how some companies have done that from the very beginning, and we'll look at also how some companies have done that even after they got started with a traditional pipeline business model. Platforms don't own the means of production. Instead, they create the means of connection. This is something to think about and to keep in mind as we go through some of these slides. Really creating a means of connection, a means of interaction between producers and consumers, between the people who obtain value from the platform that you've created. So there's a few areas that we can take a look at where there's pure pipeline models, there's hybrids, and there's pure platforms. So if we just start with the pure pipeline, it's kind of what I described a couple of slides back. You've got a traditional manufacturing company, Toyota, Pepsi. These companies produce a product, they get raw materials in, they run it through a process within their plants, and they get finished goods out, and it goes out to the retailers and to the consumers. Toyota and Pepsi are just a couple of examples. We can name many, many examples of companies that use a traditional pipeline model. Then there's a hybrid model. These are companies that perhaps started with a traditional pipeline business model, and then they moved into a platform space. They created the opportunity for themselves to take advantage of what platforms have to offer their company and their industry. So they've created platform models attached to their pipeline models, and they're able to take advantage of that. Some examples would be Apple and Samsung. If we think of the Apple example, we'll show some more details here, but Apple originally was focused on kind of a closed ecosystem, a computer model at first, and then of course they moved into smartphones. And even when they first moved into smartphones, it was really the devices, and it wasn't until later they opened up a platform by the way of the App Store. So that's one example how a pipeline company was able to transform themselves and start using a platform model. And then you've got the pure platforms. So Uber and Airbnb are just a couple of examples. WhatsApp is another example. There's a few different examples out there of companies that really started as a platform company. They never had a pipeline to begin with. Now, what's